Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives, the podcast for creative professionals everywhere. We're part of the Creatives Group, which is a private network for professionals within the creative industries to network and grow their creative businesses. I'm Melanie Perry.
And I'm Julie Hyde-Mew.
And we have a very special guest on the couch today. Julie, tell us, who have we got?
We have ODESSA Shepherd. Hi, ODESSA.
Hi there.
Well, she's just up a creative street. ODESSA is a social media content creator. So just as creators like to get creative people connected and talking and networking, ODESSA likes to get people talking. So tell us about what a social media content creator is all about.
Well, I know, absolutely. So essentially what I do for our clients is I write their content on LinkedIn. So helping them find the right words, but more importantly, it's about developing that presence for them. So keeping those conversations going, because that's essentially what social media is about. You're supposed to be starting and contributing to conversations across different sectors.
Well, social media just gives everybody such a huge audience, a global audience.
Massive.
What kind, or do you deal with individuals or do you deal with businesses? How does it all work?
So we've done work for smaller businesses, and as part of the Think Unconventional team, that's something we're looking at developing, because there are companies who maybe can't hire somebody on a full-time basis for writing their social media, or it can just be that they don't have those skills existing in the organisation. So predominantly myself, I work with sort of sole traders, individuals where they are so busy in the service delivery and the running of the business that they need somebody to kind of manage that side of things. And that's what we do for them.
And that's the thing, isn't it, ODESSA? Because there's been a lot of talk on social media about whether, and again, this word authentic that comes in, I'm beginning to absolutely detest, I have to say.
Yeah.
Sorry, but yeah, I do.
Sounds like a disease.
It does now, with all this bloody going on about it all the time. It really does. There are a lot of people out there who say, oh, you've got to be authentic, so you must be writing your content yourself. You shouldn't have anybody else or any other agency creating your content for you. And if you are, you're cheating and it's not you, and it's kind of like, spawn of the devil. What do you kind of say to that?
I love that particular debate, and I've seen content creators themselves who've moved away from that space outwardly going and saying, these people are parasitic because they're feeding on people struggling to develop those skills themselves. And my answer to that very simply is, the fact is, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as even just a busy employee with sales targets and various things, you don't physically have the time or the expertise to do everything well. There's a reason why you hire an accountant. It's because you might be rubbish with with numbers, or the very thought of having to deal with HMRC fills you with dread. Or you'll have some people that do the video for you because you hate being on camera, or you do not have the skills to edit that content effectively afterwards. So why should writing content be any different? Yes, you can do it to some extent within your organization so that you can tick a box. But if you want to do it well, then you need somebody who can take those ideas and actually turn them into something that will be productive, will develop, leads or a pipeline at some point. And for anybody who says, you need to be authentic, is anyone really authentic on social media? Is my first thing is, yes, you can be authentic, but let's face it, you're not going to share your deepest, darkest secrets. So to some extent, none of us are going to be 100% authentic, because there are parts of our lives that we do not want to share. We do not want to make them public. And so for me, it's kind of a case of, well, show up as yourself. And if you've got a good enough relationship with your client and you're choosing people that naturally you would gravitate towards because you have a similar personality, or if I hate this word niche more than I hate the word authentic, because you're supposed to be picking this audience of people that only need you. And my niche, if we're going to call it that, is working with people of a certain disposition, a certain personality, or we've got something that sparks in our personalities that makes it easier to write for them. If you're trying too hard, you will move that content away from that person as an individual. But if you have regular touch points, if you've chosen somebody that naturally you would get on really well with, then that content becomes easy to write, and it's as close to that person as is physically possible. But there are lots of people that are showing up doing other things or getting other people to do things that you can tell they can't do themselves. So it's just about skill as a writer, but also what do they want to achieve, and making sure you're choosing people that you know you can do that for.
Well, social media is actually your shop window. Even if you're a private individual and you have a Facebook account, that is the face that you show on Facebook is really not your authentic self. You're not going to show everybody what you look like just before you wake up.
No.
So when it comes to social media and when it comes to clients, do you create written content as well as video, audio content?
So for my clients, I do written content. If they send me a picture that they've taken, I will develop content out of that. If they want some graphics in there, but they don't want to take photos themselves, I will create the graphics. I don't do as much of the video content because I myself am just not as comfortable with it, and I wouldn't know where to start. So in the Think Unconventional team, that's something that Andy really enjoys doing, and so we sort of partnered up our skills. I encourage people to use video if they feel comfortable doing so. But as I say, with anybody, with any type of content, is only share when there is value to your audience. If your audience doesn't get anything out of it, you are simply talking for the sake of talking because you feel you have to. If your audience can't come away from reading a post or viewing a video and say, right, this is what I'm going to do, this is what it's taught me, isn't that interesting, this is what I'm going to do with that. If that's not what they're getting out of it, you are doing it just for the sake of it. And I would rather people not create content just to fill a tick box or to say, yes, we're on social media. Yeah, but are you actually on social media, or are you just doing it for the sake of it?
Yeah, I see that a lot. You know, people get really confused as to how much they should be doing, where they should be doing it. All these sorts of things. Again, you know, I create video for business, so I can help you there, ODESSA. But what I find is a lot of people, the first thing when people say video to me, oh, I can't do that, I don't want to be on video. But actually, video is just moving graphics. You know, it's moving image. That's all it is. You don't have to be a talking head all the time. There are so many different fun, funky ways. I mean, I turned Julie and I into a couple of hot dogs the other day. Just because. Again, I was having a bit of an uninspirational kind of a day, and one of my friends posted up that it was hot dog day, and I thought, oh, I could do something with that. So, you know, sometimes just to get content out there, and I fall prey to that sometimes. And I think you're right, you know, having a strategy, and rather show up less with better stuff than just show up willy-nilly all over the place just because, I have to be on whatever.
And I had a brilliant conversation with another very regular, slightly controversial content writer earlier, and he was saying what he finds difficult with this new generation of people coming into LinkedIn, you know, these 20-somethings, and I've just left that bracket, which makes me very sad. But when you watch what they're doing, they're sort of, he said it's very trend-based. So you've got, you know, they've embraced the pod mentality, which a lot of us who've built up this organic reach would say avoid. But a lot of people think that that's the get rich quick of social media. But for them, it's all about trends. And I don't know if that's because they've been on TikTok and because they've been on Instagram, and so much of that is about trends. And they're sort of bringing that to LinkedIn. And we were talking about it this morning. I just said, I feel like there are 600 people saying exactly the same thing because they know it's going to get them reach. Whereas the LinkedIn that I started off on a year ago was coming out of that beige suits magnolia sales pitchy, had started to become a lot more personal, and people really cared about the community around them. And I feel like that has massively changed. But I don't think any content creator who really cares about what they're actually putting out there and their brand would go so far as to say, yeah, do you know what, if that's doing well, I'm going to jump on that. I'm hoping that we're made of sterner stuff, and we can see that that's, nobody can keep up with those trends. It just feels like it's such empty content, if I'm being totally honest, where a lot of us will write with a part of our personality or something valuable.
Well, writing is quite a skill. So I would assume you are very much in demand.
I do regularly have leads come in, and they're mostly, and it's interesting, I don't know if you find the same, Melanie, but they're people who've been watching and reading content but never actually commenting. Or they are referrals of people who I've gone out and spent lots of time networking with or had a call with, and they were like, this person, we can tell from her content that she knows how to do it, and you can see from the results that are visible metrics. I love the fact that, a lot of your content, they don't show the views, so you can't see how popular that content is. You can only see with who's interacting with it. But yeah, there is definitely a need, and I think the more education that other people are putting out there about social selling, the more people realize that actually being able to put that content out there is just incredibly valuable.
I mean, that's a big thing of the moment, isn't it? Social selling. And then again, there's lots of debates on LinkedIn. There's the camp that this isn't Facebook.
Oh, we logged in. We intentionally logged into this site. We know it isn't.
Exactly. But since lockdown, there is a lot more personal content. I'm seeing, I'm on LinkedIn as you are, Odessa, every day.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing, it's selfies galore, pictures of your dog, cat, guinea pig will do really well. Repurposed videos from TikTok. Not sure if I'm a fan of that, because again, one of the big sort of video marketing reports that I read the beginning of this year is that people actually are put off by watching a video in the wrong format. Now, vertical video is great on TikTok, but when you put a vertical video on LinkedIn and I see like somebody with half the head cut off or half the text, half the captions cut off, it sets my teeth on edge. And I think that's just ruined it for me. If you're going to repurpose your content, do it properly. Record something for TikTok and then just reformat it and put it in the right format for LinkedIn.
People just don't have the expertise. And what I find really interesting is that I think there's a lot of this, it's good enough mentality, and people, there are certain people that won't spring for our services because they were like, oh, anyone can write stuff on LinkedIn, I'll give it a bash. And I assume that there's probably a similar sort of feeling around professional videos where they're like, oh, well, now I've got TikTok, I'm a video creator, I'm a videographer, I don't need that experience because if the kids are doing it, I can do it. And you just think, yeah, if you want to put yourself in the category of the 12 to 25-year-olds who are just doing silly dances and routines and stuff like that, go right ahead. And actually, there's a huge place for TikTok. If we can't assume that everyone has got the budget. I'd rather people do something than nothing. But it's when they start complaining that it doesn't get them the reach, or they're not getting that kind of interaction, or their business isn't being taken seriously. They're not landing those small to medium enterprises. They're only landing the solopreneurs. That's great. But if you want your business to expand, you need to think about how you're representing yourself. How are you putting yourself out there? Are you showing up with your best? Or are you showing up with what's good enough? And if your prospective client is just looking for good enough, great. But if you really want to show yourself as a market or thought leader, do it properly and make the investment. And I think so many people are afraid of it because they think social media is free, therefore the skills and the expertise and the services that I use also need to be free. And it's so wrong.
Well, I mentioned earlier that social media is your shop window. And if you could imagine companies, they spend, heaven knows, tens of thousands, millions on TV ads, on billboard ads. And sometimes you will get spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes. And you realize that even these advertising agencies that are paid millions for advertising campaigns don't know how to write properly. So if those companies and those huge, big advertising agencies get it wrong, can you imagine how people, just ordinary people on social media, get it wrong?
Absolutely. And this is what I find baffling, because there are lots of content creators out there, people who do something similar to what I do, and they do put spelling mistakes out there. And then everyone gets really cross when you get a DM to say, did you notice that you spelt so and so wrong? And I was like, do you know what? An average everyday person putting content out there, it doesn't matter if you make a spelling mistake. People can see past it. Maybe you've got dyslexia. Maybe you were just in a rush. Autocorrect also has a lot to answer for when writing content. I've seen a lot, I've put out a lot where I have taken it down and redo it because I didn't notice it when editing and rereading, because I probably read it out loud, and then I will read it several times just to make sure I haven't made an error. What annoys me is content creators who do what I do, going out there, putting spelling mistakes on behalf of their clients. And I know who those clients are. And I said, how can you say that you're a professional when you can't even pick up the most basic mistakes of actually making sure you use the right there? Or instead of, I'm looking at a post right now and it's bothering me because there's a spelling mistake where instead of we've got FHE. And you're like, I'm looking at, I mean, that's diagonal on my keyboard. I can understand where that mistake came from, but do you care that much about your content and how you're perceiving yourself or the perception of your brand if you can't even reread your content and make sure that there's nothing like that in there?
Well, Julie and I actually, and Julie's, because Julie is a huge perfectionist, which is great. But in our space, it's funny. But no, it's a good thing, and I don't ever say it in a derogatory thing. But sometimes to get something out, you do have to. You can have perfection paralysis. Yes. So it's kind of, and we were talking about this the other day, weren't we, Julie? It's a fine line. It's like you need to make it as good as you can. Yeah. But sometimes you do just need to get it out. But that doesn't mean, and Julie's absolutely right. I mean, when I sort of bang on about perfection paralysis, just get it out. There's a point where you just got to get it out. But that doesn't mean to say I don't want it checked. Julie keeps her eye on me with editing and with spelling sometimes as well. She'll ping me a message, take that post down, you've got it. But I'm really glad about that because again, it's our brand and it's how we do things. Because I'm a bit I'm typical Aries, and it's like, yeah, let's go. Oh, God, 100 miles an hour, and I'm off. I haven't really noticed the destruction I've left behind. Whereas Julie's like, oh, for fuck's sake, Melanie, right?
I don't swear like that.
No, she doesn't. She don't like. Do it again. But it's good that I've got somebody sense checking me because it is in today's fast-paced world. It is very easy, and this is what I've seen, or I feel that I'm seeing more of, is that people are getting really sloppy.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I don't have, I don't have perfection. I used to have it a lot. I don't have perfection paralysis anymore. Yeah. But not slipping into that, just get it out thing where you're not as concerned. Yeah. It's actually a danger zone because you should still be conscious of your grammar, your spelling, what you're putting out there, because there is a time when somebody might look at it and think, actually, that's sloppy. And if you want to represent your business as sloppy, yeah,
but it's not even that. You're telling people that you can write, that you can professionally, grammatically and correctly put content out there that shows the best of your brand and shows that you know how to communicate. If you had a painter decorator who sent you a picture of a painting and there's a massive part of it that he didn't do that second coat and it's so obvious, are you likely to hire them? No, because you can see their attention to detail is just lacking. And like you said, they're just thinking, oh, look, nobody wants to paint for themselves. So of course they're going to hire me. Well, actually, there is now a choice. This platform allows us to have access to 20,000, who knows, different content writers who are going to say, I can do your marketing, I can do your content writing for you. And this is why personal content comes into it so massively, because why on earth would you hire somebody like that when you've got the choice and you can see for yourself these individuals for who they are? We've spoken to a lead this morning who said, I like the look of you guys because you understand that each different client requires a different tone, a different approach. Other people are telling me, well, I know you're straight talking, but I want to write like this. And you forget that this is their brand that they're entrusting you with. People have come back to me and said, I won't use them for video editing, because what makes that person think that because they've got a degree, they're suddenly the best in the world? I don't like the style in which they're forcing onto my brand. It's taken me 20 years to build it, and I'm not having it wrecked by somebody who's telling me that their style is right because it's newer, because they've got a piece of paper that qualifies them to do it. It is about the love and the passion and the crafting. And that's what being creative is. And I will totally admit, I do not have a background in writing content.
Oh, shock horror.
I know. I come from recruitment. I come from HR. I've waited tables. The only reason that I'm writing for people is because I've developed my own brand on LinkedIn. I've seen how it works. I've always had a love of words, and I always wanted to be an English teacher. And I used to annoyingly critique other people's work in primary school and do the red pen thing because that was fun for me. And so, you know, I've fallen into what is essentially the best space for me. But, you know, 2 years ago, was there even such a thing as a social media content writer? There wasn't. If you wanted to be a journalist or a writer, you were writing books or columns. And so, you know, that whole space evolves all the time. Different people are slotting into their, I guess, natural talent all the time. So we can't expect them to keep that to themselves. You know, if you've got a saleable service or product, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you make that your skill rather than hoping that you'll fall into employment where somebody's going to naturally notice that for you and say, I'm going to put you in this role because it plays to your strengths? I can't imagine most businesses being able to do that because they hire you for one job and one job only. And very few of them allow you to use any kind of acumen that you might have had before joining.
Yeah, it's true. And again, you know, social media has opened up, as you say, a huge load of doors, because turn the clock back 20 years, you know, there wasn't really a fake, well, I don't know how Facebook is, but, you know, it's very, it wasn't very new, probably is 20 years old now. But, you know, as Facebook and social media has grown, you know, now you are getting the Facebook experts, the LinkedIn experts, the Instagram experts. So grow your Instagram account, you know, but these things didn't exist then. You know, nobody's gone through college getting a degree in Instagram. You know, they might have got a degree in marketing, but again, it's different, and the whole environment is morphing and changing. And I say I've seen a huge difference in the social media landscape pre and post COVID. Absolutely huge. People are being a lot more human now. People are wanting to see the human side, and people are wanting to
100%
use their voices, you know, both in the corporate world and smaller business. Definitely. I mean, LinkedIn has really changed in the last couple of years because we've got a smiley emoji now.
Yes. Hurrah.
Thank the Lord. But again, I mean, that was my big issue with LinkedIn. I was banging on about it for ages. It's like, why is business not supposed to be? Why can't a business put a post up that you can show a smile? Oh, I think that's really good. That's made me smile. That's made me feel good. You know, business doesn't need to be dull and boring and painful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's that whole element of play. If we're going to be on here for hours and hours, if we're going to spend hours investing in our business, why on earth would somebody buy from an institution, because that's essentially what a lot of these bigger organizations become, when they aren't human? You're essentially just hoping that you can buy results, but you're not buying expertise, you're not buying personality. Because and this is something that somebody said to me recently. They said, I've spoken to people who have got marketing degrees, you know, 20 years marketing experience, but they don't get social media. And they said, that's why we would rather use you, because you have grown as the platform has grown. You've changed, you've learned it, you've understood it. Not from an analytics point of view. I pay very little attention to the algorithm because it changes so often that, again, it just becomes another trend of trying to hit these markers of what we think we should be putting out there, when actually nobody wants to read that. And if you were trying to keep up with every single trend, you'd find how irrelevant your content comes from one day to the next, and how it becomes this sort of vacuous mass of stuff for the sake of stuff. But it has changed. And I think there are so many people that still, when you talk about LinkedIn, they go, oh, LinkedIn. And you're like, yeah, because that's what everyone assumes it still is. It put you off 10 years ago, put you off 5 years ago, whatever the case may be. And so marketing now, we think, oh, it's a nice to have, not a need to have. But actually, there are lots of different ways of marketing yourself. And the difficulty with social media is that it just takes you longer to see that immediate return on investment. People think, I'll put out a post, I'll go viral, the kids are doing it. Actually, those kids have been doing it for quite some time. They've been watching other people who have been doing it even longer. It's a constant learning process. Nobody learns a skill overnight. Absolutely nobody. And people are looking for more. They're not looking just to, this is an advert for a position. Do you want it? Do you not? No, they're looking for you to build that relationship. They want to know who you are. Can they trust you? Because it is a virtual world after all. Do we even know that we're talking to the person whose profile we've just viewed? They need to have those touch points. They need to know who you are, which is why selfies are important, why video content is crucial. If they're going to employ you as their coach, are they going to get on with you? Are you going to talk about stuff that would turn them right off? Do you even understand their business? And so we need to have these opportunities to touch base with the people that we're hoping to work with, which in a virtual world actually becomes easy to do, but it's more crucial that we do it.
A very good example of what both you and Melanie have mentioned, of corporations or companies showing a human side to them on social media is Wendy's, the restaurant chain in America, in the USA. And they obviously have a social media content creator on Twitter, because they come out with the funniest tweets. And if somebody leaves a bad review of their restaurant, oh, wow, the bird comes within seconds. Somebody is onto it and they turn it around, and it's become almost a game, and an incredibly funny one to follow Wendy's tweets. And obviously it has raised that restaurant chain's profile, because everybody is killing themselves laughing. It's become almost a comedy show. And that's because they are interacting with their customers on a one-to-one friendly basis, but being incredibly funny and amusing at the same time. So are you doing things like that you would do tweets for your clients?
I like the idea of Twitter. I don't love it as a platform. I think it's very confused. People aren't still very sure what they're doing on it. And so it's a great way of interacting with bigger businesses, because they know that that's the quickest way to get in touch with their audience. For somebody creating content as a small business, you've got to be quite intentional. And for me, I kind of feel like it's a throwaway sort of thing, where you do have to do it consistently. After 20 minutes, that tweet is no longer in the public eye. You need to come up with something else. And for me at the moment, I haven't worked out how that works in my strategy. But there are companies like Weetabix or Aldi's or Marks and Spencer's or Innocent Smoothies, who I absolutely adore their social media, absolutely adore, because they realize that it's fun. And actually, when you think about it, their target audience isn't necessarily here. It's probably not where they're going to get their business, but they realize their strategy on social media needs to be front of mind. So it's not about, let me show you my skills and maybe you'll want to buy from me, which is a lot of how people tend to interact with this platform. It becomes a case of, I'm really funny, you think I'm funny. The next time you go to the shop, you're going to think, right, if I want a smoothie, I'm going to get an instant. Right, if I'm going to get, a cake, I might go to Aldi because, hey, they're cutting off on a brand that's so much bigger and more prestigious, but aren't they doing it in a great, fun way? And there's definitely a place for all these types of content, but it has to be authentic to yourself. Innocent has always had a reputation of being fun with their social media, but I can't imagine Jaguar Land Rover, for example, doing anything similar. But you do notice that in those sort of throwaway tweets where they're only really good for a couple of minutes, people are getting a little bit more experimental and, clapping back on things. And that's great, but you do have to be so careful about how you do it. And you can almost, it's that fine balance, because as a big corporation, you can get away with it because you've got enough behind you that people can trust you. But equally, that one tweet could entirely lose you an audience. So I love the idea of it, but I think it's one of those things that people get sloppy with.
It's a real skill, isn't it, Twitter? Because again, you only get so many characters as well. You have to be very, very on point. And it is, because again, even with video creation that I go through the process with my clients, getting somebody to have their business story down to like a sentence is really hard. And Twitter is the same thing, only with words. You've got to get it really, 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 really short. I mean, I had a successful thing on Twitter. It was not anything to me, but it was hilarious because my son, this was a good couple of years ago, and I bought him one of those. We were in Sainsbury's, and I always usually pick him up a little toy sometimes when he's being good. And he had a Sainsbury's lorry. And he was sitting on his bedroom floor in his pajamas, playing with his Sainsbury's lorry, and he was just singing to himself. And I caught it on video and I tweeted it. And he was singing, you know, if you're happy and you know it, go to Sainsbury's. If you're happy. And it was so cute. And I tweeted it to Sainsbury's, and Sainsbury's invited my son in and gave him a free toy, and tweeted about that. And it was such a great experience for him. But you know, it as a parent, it was like, yes, I'm going to shop at Sainsbury's now for the rest of my life. Thank you very much. Yeah. You know, and it's a really, really powerful thing. Yeah. You know, but they loved it.
They did that thing, didn't they, where they normally call it a tiger loaf, but a little girl wrote in and said, it looks more like a giraffe. So now that's why Sainsbury's call it a giraffe loaf. And it's corporate companies that are able to be that agile that they realise the value in connecting with their client base. They understand just how important it is to find some kind of point to resonate. And if big corporates can, okay, yes, they're a bit slower maybe at doing it, but if they realise that there's value in doing that, why aren't the smaller businesses who can change their content schedule every single day and they could write off the cuff rather than having it approved by legal, why aren't they doing it too?
Absolutely.
What about dating sites? Do you write people's profiles?
No, I've not been asked that one yet. I would be so tempted.
Sometimes you read, if you go into these dating sites and you read the profiles and you realise, oh my God, this person is an absolutely illiterate. I'm certainly not going to get involved with him or her. I was just thinking while you were talking that a social media content creator would probably make a killing.
Do you know what? I love the idea of it. There are plenty. Yeah, there are plenty of people who think LinkedIn is a dating site, though, to be fair.
Really?
So if they really, amazingly so. So if there are people that really want me, you've got a profile on LinkedIn. If you need it optimized, you know, come and have a chat with us. We'll be more than happy to spend some time. And I guess if you want to take it on because I'll follow one piece of content with another. If you want to talk about it, it is matchmaking. It's matchmaking a professional to a client. It's matchmaking a business to their ideal audience. And so a lot of that exists on there, but yeah, there are people that actually use it in an attempt to date. And I actually know that there are plenty of couples who have actually met or dated somebody because of interactions they've had on LinkedIn. So it has its place. It's like a 2-for-1, do business and, you know, find love. It's not how I would use it. But hey, you know, who am I to judge?
Well, I don't know. I thought we had a lovely time at Clifton the other day.
We did. It was brilliant. I loved it. It was a moment. It was just a moment. We shared that moment over a coffee and a wooden table, and it was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, well, it's just glorious. Anyway, enough of the nonsense. So, Odessa,
let's get to the top tips. What are your 3 top tips then, Odessa, for social media content creators?
So anybody looking to do it themselves, or somebody looking to make that their business, their profession?
Start with those who want to do it themselves.
Yeah. So consistency is key. I think everybody will tell you that. You need to keep showing up. You need to have patience. So you need to be aware that it's going to take a long time for you to get that audience. So, you know, consume as much content as you can to help you create the content that's best suited for your audience, but you have to some extent listen and work out what's going to work for you. And I guess the last thing is be you. It's a personal account, not a business account. If you want to talk about your company page, then by all means post about your brand, your newest product, whatever, but on your personal content, that is about you. That's not about your business. Any corporate company who says to you, you're an employee of ours, therefore you have to reshare our own content, stuff like that, you are stifling the creativity. And if you're that worried about what your colleagues or employees might say, then you've got an issue with your culture, and let's talk about that separately. But you have to put yourself into the content, whether it's your opinions, whether it's your selfie, whatever it is. This is your account. It doesn't belong to your employer. Therefore, how do you best want to represent yourself? And if you can't speak freely, then you shouldn't really be on the platform, because it would be pointless.
And what about people who are looking for social media content creators?
So if they are looking to do it as a business themselves, if they're looking about being self-employed and they're thinking they can give it a bash, you can only really offer it to do it for other people when you formulaically know what works best for you, when you can say with a track record or with a level of certainty, I know what I'm doing is working. It doesn't mean that you have to have been on there for 6 months, but if you've got consistent growth in your audience, if you've got a regular following, if you're doing a ton of networking, Zoom or, face to face, then you can start to say, maybe I can do this for other people. But actually your audience will tell you if you're good enough. There's no point saying, oh, that did really well, I think I can do it to someone else. You will have more and more people saying, you're awesome at what you do, you're doing it for yourself, can you do it for me? And that's almost how you prefer to have your audience. But don't pay for pods. Don't, do these WhatsApp chats of, oh, I put a post up, can everyone like it? The only way that you're going to really be successful is if you focus on organic reach, and your vibe attracts your tribe, as Craig Dean always says, and I've heard lots of people say since. So you need to know who your audience is. You need to understand what they want to talk about, but you also need to realize where your expertise lies and talk about the things you're comfortable talking about. Coming out of your comfort zone is great, but to do it for somebody else, you're going to have to write like them, feel like them, talk like them, be professional like them. You're going to have to know the industry like they do. And so you need to think about the structure of your business, how best to get that information from a prospective client, but you also need to have the time to meet with them regularly or develop a niche of personalities so that you can do that for them. And you have to be extremely organized. But with any self-employment, it takes time. You're not going to be an overnight success. It's going to take a while, unless you've got a huge backing behind you because you were doing it whilst you were in employment. The biggest thing I would say is you're just going to have to stick with it. You are going to have clients that leave you very quickly, some that stick around for a little while. You've got to keep networking. Don't be worried that you're going to have too much work coming in, because I don't know if either of you can speak from experience, but it's always looked like I've got loads of leads, I'm not going to be able to cope with this work, we're going to need to work with someone else. Give it a bit of time. Some of those will just naturally fall away. Some of them will come back to you in 3 months' time, and actually you'll end up having an opening. So you're just going to have to accept that it is quite stressful, but as long as you're organised and you're regularly networking, those opportunities will keep coming in.
Lovely. I love that. Right, we've got about 5 minutes left. So Julie knows this is where I'm going to get out my lovely value jam card. I nearly brought these to Clifton the other day. I should have, because I was going to say, just touch my card. Because I do go to these raptures, and Julie's sitting there rolling her eyeballs at me. But
I just roll my eyes.
I know, but she's going to get her own soon. But these cards, they're so soft and silky and tactile that I could just sit and play with them all day. I know. I like them. I like my cards.
Okay. So, no shame in that.
One of our deals. I'll just have a moment.
Card fetish.
I'm just going to have a moment.
Is it only cards, not only fans, or only feet? I think there's the next one.
Oh gosh,
that's so weird.
I don't know. Right. Okay. As couple as they're going to go. Right.
I'm ready.
I'll spread them out. I can hold them up. Right, so I'll run my...
You're going to ask me to pick one? Oh, okay.
And then say stop, and I'll pick one.
Stop.
Right, hold on. Oh. Quite a good one.
Oh.
The card is...
Ooh, it is a good one.
Efficiency. So, ODESSA, what does efficiency mean to you? What does it look, feel, and sound like?
Okay. Efficiency to me looks like a to-do list. It sounds like promising only what you know that you can deliver, because you understand your diary and you understand where that fits in with your life, and therefore you can only commit so much. And efficiency also means only, I guess, a link to that is making sure that you've got a very good plan for the week, not just the day, because we all know that stuff goes in last minute, but knowing to the hour what you're doing, making sure that stuff is prioritized. But most importantly, if you've got stuff on your to-do list that has to be done that day, you put those priorities first, or you make sure they're done before you go to bed. I've stayed up sometimes until midnight because things got in the way, but I knew I had to get that finished. And so working efficiently means you get through those things and you stop wasting time and you make sure you're hitting those goals.
What does it sound like?
Sounds like a fish.
There you go.
That's got to be one of the quickest answers we've ever had, Julie. Because normally, whenever we put out these cards, and I always lead with the first question. I'm a bit, anal like that. I never mix them up. Probably shouldn't do. But I always start with them. And people, there's like rabbit in the headlights. And they're like, what? What do you mean? Was it look like? Sound like?
A very obscure question. Come on, you have to admit. What does
why not?
Patient, sound, feel, look like? I mean, it's very obscure.
I know, but
Patient sounds like a hospital. Yeah, see, I'm a bit like that. If you can ask me a question like that, because I overthink a lot of things, and that actually was what came to me first, which is why it's easier for me to answer.
It was a very good answer. So one was good. I'm going to ask another one now. She did that so quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I took my glasses off. How could more efficiency improve the world, ODESSA?
People stop procrastinating. People stop second guessing themselves. I know we talk about that in content, that you need to make sure it's right. But I think if people invest, I think what people struggle with is they think everything needs to be done quickly, and it does. But I would rather you efficiently work through things, in that you have a checklist, so that if you are going to speed things up and you're not going to work at, snail's pace, then you have got safeguards, or you've got a process in place to make sure that every single time you are on the mark. And doing, efficiency is not having to go back and check so many times, because you already know what you need to check. You're already ticking it off, and you can move on to the next task confident that you've done it correctly.
So having like a process really in place. Yeah. It's having that.
I love processes and procedures, which is funny because, like, as a creative person, you're kind of supposed to be a bit scatty and a bit off the wall and a bit disorganized, but I'm also a huge control freak. So they're often at odds with each other, but trying to find little things where you can combine one sort of side of you with the other. Yeah. It's hard, but it works.
Yeah, and it is needed. It is needed in business. It's all very well having the creative flair and the ideas and everything like that, but unless you can put those ideas into action and grow your business, it doesn't really count for very much.
Being creative is great. It's actually a moderately new space to me. I would never have said I'm a creative person, because to me it was problem solving, and so I see those two things as different. But actually, we don't really understand what it means to be creative. We try and pin it down to artists and sculptors and all this sort of thing, but actually creative is the ability to quickly come up with a solution or quickly work through a problem, and trying to think of something that perhaps other people wouldn't have, because you understand that there is no such thing as one correct answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, I think we're going to have to call it a day, because our hour is up. ODESSA, thank you so much for being our guest today.
It's lovely talking to you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
And I'm sure we'll have you back to talk to us soon.
Just a reminder that any creators out there who wish to become a member of Creators, just to remind them that you not only get connected to creators in your field and creators in other fields, but you also get connected to everybody's network. So if ODESSA interested you, she's a member of Creators, aren't you, ODESSA?
Yeah.
And a good person to know, as we know.
Absolutely. So thank you, ODESSA, for taking the time. If you'd like to join Creatives, as Julie said, just comment below and we'll be in touch with you. But until next time, see you.